Hello, you guys. Welcome back, or welcome to my channel if you are new. My name's Audra, and today I cannot believe I'm finally sitting down and filming this video. It feels very surreal, but this is going to be my birth story and probably my postpartum recovery first month story, all of the above. As of today, my daughter is 1 month old, which is so crazy. They tell you how fast time goes, but how has it been a month already? I literally cannot believe it, but I'm really excited to go through all of the nitty-gritty details. I am talking a little quiet because she is sleeping across the hall, and it is the first time, I think, that we have successfully gotten her to nap in her crib. Time will tell. We'll see if she can stay settled, but it was a little bit of a rough night last night with sleep, and I think we may be starting to get into a groove kind of figuring out what to do with her. But anyway, that's all for another time. But all right, so my birth story, let's jump right into it. I literally, again, I can't believe I'm filming this. So a little bit of background. This is my first baby. We had a little girl, and I'm sure if you guys do not follow me on Instagram, you guys are all wondering what her name is and all the details. So we'll start by telling you guys her name. Her name is Jackson Jules, and a little bit of background on her name. Her first name, Jackson, came, honestly, there's not like a huge significance to her first name. It was a name that I had thought of years ago for like a girl, and I really liked it. I tend to like boy names for girls, and I struggle a lot with girl names actually. And so like, how many years ago? I mean, it was like when Jonathan and I were not first started dating, like we weren't talking about kids that early, but like after a couple years we were together, I remember bringing it up to him, and I was like, I really like this name. And so it was always kind of in the back of my mind. And I of course, like most of us girls do, I had this whole note in my phone of girl names, boy names, whatever, baby names, dog names, everything. And as soon as I got pregnant, none of them, I didn't like any of them. Like none of them, not that I didn't like any of them, but none of them felt right. So anyway, Jackson was the one name that my husband Jonathan and I would go through, and like we'd list off names and like repeat names to each other, and nothing else stuck. That's kind of what we kept telling people, is like we weren't even for sure set on the name really until, I don't know, maybe like a month and a half before she was born. And even then we still told people like we weren't sure because again, just nothing else stuck. So we were like, we're pretty sure, but like we just needed like a sense of urgency of her being here to have it be like finalized, I guess, if that makes sense. So Jackson is her first name, just spelled Jackson. Nothing weird, nothing crazy. And her middle name, Jules, is actually after my mom, who passed away when I was little. Her name was Julie, and I always wanted some sort of like usage like of her name in if I ever had a daughter, and I didn't necessarily want it to be just straight Julie, and I figured Jules was a great kind of twist on her name, so that is the significance of her middle name, which is super special for me. And then the two together is what really sold us. Like it wasn't just Jackson by itself, it was Jackson Jules. Like we've always said that from the beginning. It's just like the combo. It's just like, it's an it girl name. It's a cool girl name. It just flows. It sounds great together. And then of course it has a little bit of that meaning with her being partially named after my mom. So that is the story behind her name. Just figured I'd get that out there right away off the bat. And now let's jump into the details of my birth story. Also, I have to know, I'm literally sitting in this little like corner of my bedroom because it is so dark outside, you guys. And I have my house is pretty bright, and this is like the only spot with the exception of her nursery. Her nursery has great lighting, and it is currently occupied, obviously. So I'm not filming there. So I'm literally filming in front of the window in our bedroom. So not the greatest, filming setup. But you guys, I literally had to put all of the, I was like taking notes as I was in labor because I knew I would forget everything. When they tell you to write everything down, I get it. Your brain is absolute mush after having a baby, you guys. I am still struggling with like my memory, and I get it now, the whole like baby brain thing. Like when I was pregnant, I didn't have that, but as soon as she was born, I can't remember anything. And also that like those first couple days in the hospital, an absolute time warp. Like time does not exist when you're in the hospital having a baby. It was so wild. So I literally had to take notes. So I will be looking at my phone just as a refresher. Again, this was a month ago, so it's not like super fresh in my mind. But all right, here we go. Getting into the nitty gritty. So let me set the stage. Tuesday morning, October 8th. It is about 5:43 in the morning. I wake up to go pee because I'm very pregnant. I was 37 weeks and 3 days pregnant. So if you know, you know, you are peeing a lot. So I get up, it's 5:43 in the morning, get up to pee, and I'm going to the bathroom, and I kind of feel this like, I'm like going to the bathroom. You guys, let me preface also, there's a lot of TMI in here, okay? So if that makes you cringe, it's a birth story. Like, I'm not gonna say like TMI every time. It's all TMI, okay? So if you're watching this, just, I am not gonna spare any details here, so I hope you guys appreciate that, because we're getting into the nitty gritty. So anyway, I'm going to the bathroom peeing, and I feel this kind of like extra like gush, and I was like, oh, she must have kicked my bladder, because she had done that before. And you kind of feel like this extra little like gush of, you know, fluid when that happens. And so I get up, you know, whatever, flush, go back to bed, and I sit on the edge of my bed, and I'm like, I feel like more liquid, and I'm like, okay, interesting. And then I stand up again, and then just like the movies, it is running down my legs and it is gushing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like my water just broke. And it like, so many thoughts go through your mind in like 2 seconds, and I'm like, okay, it's early, should I wake Jonathan up or just wait, because I know it's not like an emergency, and like we gotta wait for like contractions to pick up, blah blah blah, so many things. So I'm like waddling into the bathroom to put on, I had thankfully already bought some like diapers, like for postpartum or whatever, for recovery. So I put on a Depend, and a diaper, Depends. I put on a Depend, and I was like, okay, I've got to tell him, because Jonathan was gonna have to get up for work in like an hour. So I was like, I gotta tell him. So woke him up, I'm like, Jonathan, my water just broke. And he's like, oh my gosh, like same thing, like immediate like panic for like the first like 10 seconds, and then we're like, okay, hang on. Also, Jackson just woke up, so we'll see if she can calm herself back down. So I was like panicking, and then I was like, wait, hold on. I already know just because your water breaks does not mean you need to rush and go to the hospital. So I was like, okay, let's take a little break here, breathe, because it was early. And like I said, it was 37 weeks and 3 days. So still considered like full term, because once you hit 37 weeks, you're considered full term. But I was not ready. Like I literally the night before, I had filmed this, and I don't know that I'll ever post this, but I was literally filming packing my hospital bag, and I was just like, you guys, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't know why. I'm just like dreading doing this. So literally the night before, I had packed my hospital bag, and thank God I did. Or I should say I gathered things for my hospital bag. So I had just about everything together at least. And then I just had to like put it in a bag. Jonathan had nothing packed, which he's easy. He just had to throw clothes and like a phone charger in a bag. So whatever, that was easy. But it's just so funny that literally the day after I gathered everything for my hospital bag is when I went into labor. Water broke 5:45, and then we're like, okay, we have time. We're not gonna panic. Let's like get the house in order. We were actually watching my dad's dogs, because he worked an overnight shift, and so we take his dogs. So we had 6 dogs, and we're like, you know what, my dad's gonna be here soon. Let's just chill. He'll just take our dogs back with him, and then we can get to the hospital. So that's what we did. And so literally we are like vacuuming. I am doing my hair. I am showering, shaving my legs. Jonathan is installing the car seat, because we hadn't done that yet. And then my dad comes in and from work, and we're like, I was up curling my hair, because I was like, I at least want to have my hair curled. Like, you know, I was like going to do the whole makeup thing, and I was like, no, just hair is fine. And so my dad comes in, and Jonathan's like, so her water broke. And my dad's like, oh, okay, so it's go time. So he took his dogs, he took our dogs, and headed home, and we just kind of got the rest of the house in order, got packed up. I think we ate some breakfast, and about 9 or 9:30 we headed to the hospital. Good morning. It is about 6:45 on October 8th, and my water broke about an hour ago. Oh, you guys, this is wild. We've been running around with our heads cut off for the last hour, like not knowing what to do, but thankfully yesterday I was working on packing my hospital bag, and we have it pretty much ready. I need to shower, shave my legs. I was gonna wash my hair, but I was like, you know what, it looks fine. I'm just gonna curl it, we'll touch it up. But we are going to head to the hospital pretty soon. We're just wrapping stuff up at the house. I'm not in a rush, I'm not like having contractions. I'm kind of like a little crampy, but nothing crazy. But yeah. It's happening. Let's hope it happens today, because your girl likes even numbers for birthdays. So anyway, I'll probably explain more in depth when we were at the hospital, just killing time, but I need to charge my vlog camera because it's almost dead. But we're gonna be having a baby. I'm literally in a diaper, but she's coming. All right, you guys, it is right before 9 o'clock. My dad came over, grabbed the dogs. We're still running around like cleaning, trying to get our washing machine to work because it was not working. Well, it just was too heavy we were washing our sheets, but we're about to head to the hospital. The car is packed, the bags are all loaded, the car seat is installed, we ate a little bit of breakfast. I haven't been having crazy contractions, just like I had like one like pretty hard Braxton Hicks like tightening, didn't hurt at all, and then just a little bit of cramping, but we're about to head in. It's so crazy. So here we go. So then we get to the hospital and they send you to triage to get you checked in, take your vitals, make sure that my water actually broke, which it was interesting. So they do what's called a Fern test. So they swab you to make sure that you are leaking amniotic fluid and that you didn't just like pee yourself, because apparently that's a thing when you're pregnant. And they had to test me twice because the midwife that was doing it for me was like, I believe you, but for some reason it's not like showing up, like it's turning blue when she swabbed me, which is a good sign, but then like it wasn't showing up in the microscope. So they had to swab me twice, which then they were like, they came back in and they're like, oh, interesting. It did test positive, so my water broke. But they're like, so basically the way a fern test works is the amniotic fluid forms what look like fern fronds, like a fern plant, under a microscope. And she's like, the like design basically of your fluid is really small, so it's actually really hard to tell, and it's just like a genetic thing, I guess. So that was kind of interesting right off the bat. But so then we got checked in, and let me see what time that was, because again, time is not real. So 10:30 we got admitted to labor and delivery, and then they did labs, vitals, they checked my cervix. I was barely a centimeter dilated, and I was not effaced at all. So basically I hadn't really progressed like at all. So honestly, I also, just to preface, I had gestational diabetes, so, and a little bit of hypertension, so I was already planning on getting induced probably 38, 39 weeks. So I honestly was not even really planning on ever like my water breaking or anything. I was just planning on getting induced and whatever. So going into this process, as I will talk about, I wasn't really surprised by what happened with how things progressed, basically. We're officially checked into labor and delivery. Ow. I don't know what that was. I have weird pains going on, but anyway, we're checked in. I am barely a centimeter dilated and not effaced. So we got cytotech started, and now we're eating some lunch. It's a little after 1. I've been here for a long time. That's crazy. We got in at like 9:30.
It's going by fast, which is surprising. Oh, my ball is rolling around the room. What was that? I guess once we got into triage, it was like 9:30, but just chilling, hanging out, about to eat because I'm starving. How is it? Good? Good. We got some lunch, ta-ta, burger, and mashed potatoes and gravy.
So, that being said, by about noon, I still hadn't progressed at all. And from the beginning, I was like, I'm more than likely going to need to be induced because my water broke and I'm not making progress. So basically, they started me on Cytotec. So they did like a half dose, I think, at noon. Yes, first dose of Cytotec at noon to try and ripen my cervix, see if that got things going. And then after that, about 1 o'clock, we just ordered some lunch, and I was like bouncing on the ball, the birthing ball, and just trying to like see if I could get things moving. And then starting about 1:45 is when my contractions actually started. Very manageable. I just was like noticing them. It was just like a lot of like tightening, and that was pretty much it. So I was like, great, this is perfect. So we just continued with that. And honestly, I don't remember if they gave me another dose of Cytotec.
The Old Boy Network, Union Protection.
It's 2:45. We're watching Law and Order. And my contractions are like 2.5 to 3.5 minutes apart, but still very manageable. So I think that Cytotec is doing its job. But I'll be due for another dose in like an hour, I think. So don't know if I'm any more dilated, but I don't particularly care to get another check until I absolutely have to. But I'm a ball.
Just take your time, Sam. How much longer is
Just
this
chilling.
game going to go on?
My head looks giant from this angle.
About 3 p.m., I started losing my mucus plug, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. It can mean that you're progressing a little bit more. But my contractions were still just like 3 minutes apart. Pretty inconsistent, I would say. I mean, regular, but not consistent. Does that make sense? So from there, at 4 o'clock, they checked me, and I was at 2 centimeters, and I was 80 to 90% effaced, which, just for reference, you have to be effaced before you can dilate, or like in order for things to really progress, you have to efface more. So the effacement was really good. That's good that I was like almost completely effaced, which is, so there's dilation, which is this way, like the way that your cervix goes this way opens, and then there's effacement, which is like how tall and like soft your cervix is. So I was like, it was almost completely down, so that was good. And then baby's head was at a -1 station, so that was like really good progress. Like we're getting there, things are moving, things are happening. And then at 5 o'clock we started Pitocin. So basically at this point I was like, I'm already like, I want to get the epidural. There's no point in delaying this. Let's just do it. We were hoping that we would have a baby that night, but plot twist, we did not. But that's okay. So they started me out on Pitocin at a level 2, and then at 5:30 they doubled it up to a 4, and then 6 they put it up to a 6. So they just kept like bumping basically my Pitocin levels to try and get my body to progress.
Okay, it's about 6:30 and we're getting spicy. The contractions are like every like 2 minutes ish, and they're hurting. So they are prepping us to get an epidural. We're running fluids right now, and then I'm ready. They hurt. Still on this ball because it kind of hurts, like even being on this ball kind of hurts my tailbone a little bit. But laying in the bed is like worse. So we're just kind of been standing, sitting on the ball. Jonathan's just hanging, rubbing my back a lot. So epidural is coming, and then we're gonna be feeling good, and I'll be ready to eat and take a nap. I'm ready.
6:45. We were nearing shift change, and I was having contractions and they were starting to get painful. But I was like, it's okay. I'll just wait. They kind of warned me like, hey, our anesthesiologist is going into a C-section and we're coming on shift change. So like, if you want the epidural, get it now or ask for it now because it'll probably be at least an hour before we get it. Yada, the typical, like they tell you. So I was like, I'm okay. I might be able to wait for a shift change. Y'all, don't ever think you can wait for the epidural, okay? Don't be a hero. You probably heard it said before because I swear the second that you say you can wait and it's not that bad, it gets bad. So thank God my husband was like, no, she wants it. And they started the process. So because it did take a good hour and a half maybe. So basically they have to do like paperwork and then the anesthesiologist has to like come and run through and like get set up and it's a whole process. So the way it worked for me was actually the nurse thought we were going to have a different anesthesiologist. And so she's like, okay, we're going to have you facing the bathroom. We're going to have you sit up and you're going to hunch over and then they're going to, insert the epidural. You can't move, yada, yada. Then maybe 15, 20 minutes later, she comes back in and she's like, okay, change the plans. We have a different anesthesiologist and he has a very set process. So she's like, she had a nursing student there with her and she's like, okay, I need this. And she's like, okay, we're not going to have you face the bathroom. We're going to have you face the window and you're going to lay down, which I'd never heard of someone getting an epidural laying down. But I was like, okay, whatever, go with the flow. It was great. So, and at this point, I'm like really my contractions are starting to hurt. So, they already were hurting, but like, again, it was manageable. But then our anesthesiologist comes in and at this point, literally as soon as he started prepping me, I was hit with the worst contractions. I literally cannot imagine contractions getting worse than this. I had 2 really, really awful contractions while I was getting my epidural and I was literally miserable. And so, like I said, if you are offered an epidural or you think you want it, get it because you never know when your contractions are going to get worse. And again, I was on Pitocin. Pitocin makes your contractions terrible, basically. Like, makes them so much worse because it's not natural and it's forcing your body to do something that it's not ready to do. I don't know how, I legitimately don't know how someone could have a Pitocin, like an epidural or an induction birth without medication because it was literally so awful. And I only experienced 2 of those contractions before my epidural kicked in. If you have done that, you're amazing. I do not ever want to experience that ever. So anyway, so then, and actually, fun fact, I actually really appreciated the method that this anesthesiologist used for my epidural. Something about laying down, I was able to like I have this weird thing where I like rub my feet together and it's like a self-soothing thing. Like I do it in bed, like when I get in bed and I'm like still like that. It's so weird. I don't know what it is or what it does, but I was able to do that while he was doing the epidural. And honestly, you guys, I had no idea that he was done by the time he was done. Like he was like, okay, here's this, I'm gonna put the catheter, blah blah. I thought they're like, oh, it's probably gonna take like 10 minutes. That 10 minutes felt like 2 seconds, and it was so fast, and then it was done. So I really liked it that I was laying down because I could still like move my feet together as like a method of like distracting myself from the pain, I guess. Also, fun fact, I realized that my anesthesiologist was the dad of one of my friends in high school, which is so funny. I realized it after the fact, after we were home from the hospital, but he was really great. So really, really appreciated that. And no regrets about this epidural, which you will hear more about later. So they came in at 8:30 to check me again. They kind of let me chill after getting the epidural, and they checked me and I was at a 5, which is great. So then they put a peanut ball between my legs, which a peanut ball, it's kind of like an infinity symbol, but in like an exercise ball. So that's supposed to get your pelvis in a position to allow baby to move down. And it did work. So they kind of did that. They were just changing my positions like, every, I don't know, like hour, a couple hours, which was really great. So that helps me progress quite a bit. So we were doing that. And then starting about 9:30 is when things kind of started getting a little sticky, not crazy, but basically she was having delayed decelerations in her heart. So I would have a contraction, and then after the contraction, her heart rate would drop. It wasn't super concerning. It was just something that they were like watching, and they're like, okay, we're gonna keep an eye on this and see how things go. I also started having like bloody show at this point, which they were like, okay, this is a great sign that you're progressing. Then at about 10:30, my doctor came in and checked me, and I was 7 centimeters and 100% effaced at 0 station. So that means baby's head is like right there. I just need to dilate more. And they did insert an internal monitor, just to keep an eye on baby again with her decelerations. They wanted to make sure that when contractions were getting stronger, that she was still okay, basically. So because of that, because she was like kind of stressed out, they turned off my Pitocin, and they were like, let's see how she responds, how your body responds when we just eliminate the Pitocin, because sometimes that causes like more stress on the baby and your body. So because again, it's artificial hormones, the whole thing. So
all right, you guys, I've been so bad at updating. It is like 10:45, and I don't remember where I last checked in, but stuff got intense. So we got the epidural, and it's been great. But I am 7 centimeters dilated and 0 or 100% effaced, station 0. So we're getting close. And we had a little bit of some late decelerations in baby's heart after contractions. So we dropped the Pitocin, and we're just seeing how that does. And then we did an internal monitor, and I think she's liking that. So this is where we'll be for a little while, but she's almost here. Crazy.
they kind of just let me ride that out like that for several hours, and they came back and checked me at 1 a.m. and I had basically stopped progressing at 8 centimeters, which most people would be really frustrated by. I was actually very relieved because right around this time, we had, kind of like shut the lights off, gone to bed, tried to get some sleep, and I was getting so anxious at this point. Like I would they'd come and check my vitals every hour, and I just felt like I couldn't get rest. I was constantly getting woken up, and I'd been laboring all day basically, for almost 24 hours at this point, and or 20 hours I should say. And I, for whatever reason, got super anxious. I was starting to panic, and my nurse came in, and I was I'm getting super anxious and panicky, and she just kind of sat me down, talked me through what are you anxious about? I'm just so I need more sleep, and I'm just nervous about pushing because I had no idea what to expect for pushing. I figured it would take several hours. They say you can push for up to 3 hours, and especially with your first, and they kind of warned me about that ahead of time. And I was I just didn't know what to expect from pushing. So I was just super anxious and was getting panicky, like I said. And then, so when I found out I was kind of stalled at 8 centimeters, I was so relieved because I was oh my gosh, this means I can get more sleep. So I was actually really relieved. So, was stalled at 8 centimeters, and then they started my Pitocin back up again, to get me to, continue to progress. So from there, fast forward to 4 a.m. on October 9th, I was fully dilated and ready to push. So this, again, I was super anxious for, and I'm sure a lot of people are really anxious for the pushing phase of labor. Don't be anxious. It's actually so chill, at least with an epidural. I can't speak for unmedicated, but with an epidural, it was actually really relaxed and laid back. I mean, obviously pushing is hard work, but my contractions were 3 minutes apart. So basically what we'd do is I would get into position and we'd wait for a contraction. When the contraction started, I would push, and I would push 3 times. So I'd have 3 sessions of holding for pushing as hard as I could, and then I would relax and rest in between contractions, and then we would just like chill and talk. Like the nurses and Jonathan and I, we were just hanging out talking once, you know, the contraction wore off. So it was actually really chill, and my nurse had me try lots of different positions. Sorry if you hear my baby screaming. Crib nap, not so successful. So like I said, the nurses kind of warned me ahead of time, like, it's your first baby. You should probably expect to be pushing for like 2 or 3 hours. But it did not feel like that long at all. I did push for 2 hours, like 2 hours on the dot almost, 1 minute shy of 2 hours. And it honestly did not feel like that long at all. Like I said, it was super relaxed. We were doing different positions, talking, and it was honestly, I have heard people say that pushing is like their favorite part of labor, and I understand why now. It's, again, if you have an epidural. If you don't, maybe not so much, but, so it was really laid back, and that made me feel so much better. And it was just it was honestly like a very pleasant experience, as weird as that is to say. So was pushing for 2 hours, and, like I said, my nurses were kind of like changing my position a lot, and seeing, like, not changing my position, but changing like the method that I used to push. So we started kind of the traditional, like, I was holding like the back of my knees and, like, you know, like kind of bearing down. And then we tried like the handles, like on the bed, which that didn't work great. My legs were literally useless at this point, by the way. Like for the first like half of the time having my epidural, I could still like move a decent amount. Like they were very like surprised that I could like change positions and like flip myself over. But by like 3 a.m., no, absolutely not. So it got a little bit harder to do positions, but the position that worked best was tug of war. And they literally took a big old sheet, and I like held on to one end, the nurse pulled the other end, and I would pull, and then it kind of just got me in position and like to be able to push her out in a good way. Also, I used the mirror from the beginning, and highly recommend, if you have an epidural, if that doesn't like freak you out, is using the mirror, because that was the only way I was really able to like gauge my progress, was seeing literally like her head come down. I know some people might think that's weird, but for me it worked really great, and it was kind of motivating to be able to see like I am making progress even if I can't necessarily feel it. So highly recommend, if you are considering that, if you're going into having a baby, try using the mirror, because I thought it worked so well. Also, it was so funny. I'm like a very like go with the flow, like chill kind of person, and nothing really phases me. But let me tell you, when they put that mirror up there and you are biddies to the wind, I was like, well, that's a view I've never seen before. So it was just like a little wild. But it, you know, it worked well. So, and let me tell you, what you might be like, you know, trying to be modest before you have a baby. After you have a baby, all bets are off. Like, I am like, I mean, I could have been completely naked and it would not have fazed me at all. Everybody's looking at you. It does not faze them, you guys. Like, if you're embarrassed about like exposing yourself, once you get in there, it's the last thing you're worried about. So we're doing practice pushes, and I got to, I don't know, it's probably like an hour in. You guys, I can't believe I'm sharing this on the internet. I literally cannot. But hopefully it makes some other women feel better going into labor. And I know people are wondering this. Did I poop on the table? And the question is yes, I did. I sure did. So basically, while we were practice pushing, we were just hanging out after contraction, and I'm looking down. Again, there's a mirror in front of me, and I'm like, what is that? Is that a turd? You guys, we're dying laughing. Like, that's how, like, it literally does not have to be that deep. Yep, that's what it was. They swiped it away. Totally fine. Did not faze them. We're dying laughing, you guys. Again, it does not have to be serious. Don't be embarrassed. I was literally like, of course it is. Like, So anyway, yes, I pooped on the table. Did I care? No. Did they care? No. Am I slightly embarrassed that I'm sharing this on the internet? Maybe a little bit, but hopefully it makes you feel better. It is not even a thing. Not even a thing. Also, it's not like you're dropping a whole load on the table, okay, you guys? Just for full reference, like, for all the information, it was just a little bit. It was nothing crazy, but there you have it. I pooped in labor. Okay. All right. There's my full share of the day. Okay, so then fast forward to, let's see, what time was that? That was like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. So right before like 6 o'clock, it was probably like 5:30. We were like, all right, we're pretty much there. So we called the doctor in, and then we also had a team that came in just in case something were to go wrong. We had the charge nurse and a whole bunch of people there just in case something were to go wrong. So for reference, my baby was measuring very large, 99th percentile, because of my gestational diabetes. That causes basically the release of insulin acts as a growth hormone for babies when you're pregnant with gestational diabetes. So my baby was measuring big, and hence why they wanted, well, one of the reasons why they would have induced me if I hadn't gone into labor on my own. So I was pushing, and right towards the end, again, I have the mirror in front of me, I can see like her head is like right there. And I had one, if not like 2 or 3 push cycles where I could not get her head out. And so basically, I think it was like right at the end. So I knew I was like so close, and everyone's like really focusing, and I saw her head there, and it was just, I would push and it just like would not come out. So after like a couple cycles, the charge nurse came in and was like basically like lubing up her head, to prep and try to make it easier for her to come out of the birth canal. And then all of a sudden, like, they are moving everything out of the way. They move the mirror around, the doctor's getting in there, and I am not able to push her out. And so the doctor didn't like reach in, but she did have to pull her out because she was stuck, which we were also informed of, because when you have a big baby, you are at risk for shoulder dystocia, which is their shoulders getting stuck and they have to like break their collar. I think it's their collarbone they have to break. But she pulled her out, and then she was born at 5:59 a.m. on October 9th. So, she was born, and you know, there's so much going on in those like first seconds, minutes. So they pulled her out and they put her on my chest, and I was hoping I could start crying. I get it now why people say hearing their cry is like the best sound in the world. Like I remember very little about her being born, but that little cry is truly like, when you hear that, it's the sweetest, like, best sound, and like nothing else that you can experience. Like, you can't even explain it. And like, if you had a baby, you know, like when you hear that, it's like the best. Even though they're crying, it's like I literally like lost it when I heard her cry. And so they put her on my chest, and you know, they're giving us, you know, the chest to chest or skin to skin, and they're like taking pictures and everything, and like I feel like I haven't even like seen her face hardly, but it was just so crazy, and like a lot's happening, you know, people are bustling around, and all of a sudden I am feeling this like insane pressure, I guess you could say. It couldn't really be pain because I still had my epidural, but I was like, what is happening? I didn't know what was going on. And so basically what was happening is because she was stuck, the doctor had to pull her out, resulting in me having a 3rd-degree tear. But they don't tell you that right away. So my doctor is stitching me up. And that was the worst part of my labor by far. It was so, I was registering it as pain, even though the nurse is like, no, it's like, it can't be painful. Like, what are you feeling? Like, and it was just like so much pressure. Literally felt like there was a 2-liter bottle in my booty hole, you guys. It was so uncomfortable. And I remember I was just like clutching her to my chest, and like my eyes were squeezed shut. I was like borderline hyperventilating because it was so intense, and I'm gonna say painful because I have no other way to describe it. It was brutal. So I don't know how long she was actually stitching me up for. I have no idea. But it felt like forever. Like, it felt like 15 minutes of hell. And then once she finished, she basically, I mean, she was asking for all these things and blah, blah, blah. So I like made the connection in my brain, like, oh crap, like I tore. And here's the thing is, like, when her head was coming out, I had not torn. Like, I could see it. And then once they moved the mirror away, obviously I couldn't see anything. But we are pretty sure just because she had to be pulled out because she was stuck. And just for reference, I'm so glad that she did what she did, because after having her, I'm in a due date group on Facebook with other moms that are due in October, and there were several moms that had written and said that their baby was stuck, similar situation to Jackson, and their baby had stroke or had brain damage because they were left in the birth canal for too long. And once I read that, I was like, thank God. Thank God she like pulled her out. Like, I don't even care what she had to do, because I can't imagine having to go through that. And I'm just so grateful that my doctor just didn't hesitate. I don't even care that I tore, even though that was literally the worst thing I've ever experienced. I'll get to that later. But it's just, I'm so grateful that my doctor did not hesitate and got her out and did what she had to do. So anyway, she came out and she was perfect, minus the fact that she was very, very bruised. The whole back of her head, her whole right arm was black and blue, around her mouth was black and blue, so she had a little bit of a bumpy entrance. And again, from being stuck and not quite being able to shift through the birth canal. But she came out and she was as perfect as she could be, and weighed in at a chunky 8 pounds 6 ounces at 37 weeks. So she would have been a big girl if she would have come full term. So we're very grateful that everything happened the way it did at the time that it did, because holy cow, that would have been even worse. So basically, after my doctor had stitched me up, she said, all right, here's the deal. There are 4 degrees of tearing, and you have a 3rd degree tear. And so she stitched me up, told me blah, blah, everything like that. And then later, my nurse, she goes, yeah, there was just like the smallest little bit of skin that was saving you from a 4th degree tear. And I was like, great. Love that for me. So anyway, that is how she was born, and she was perfect. All her scores were great. And everyone was so curious how big she was, which is like so fun. So anyway, we had our little skin to skin and our little golden hour, and then we started transitioning from labor and delivery to postpartum. What was super fun is a gal that I went to high school with, that I graduated with, she was actually coming on shift when they were doing shift change right after she was born. So she asked if she could take on my case and be my nurse for the little transition. So I said yes, and it was so fun having somebody there. She has one baby. Well, he's not a baby anymore, but she has one kid, and she's like, oh, it's so fun when you get somebody that you know. So that was super fun, getting to have her kind of help me out, even though it was at my lowest. Actually, just kidding, that was not my lowest. We'll get to that later. My baby is screaming. I'm gonna go grab her and bring her in and show you guys, and then we'll finish the story and go into a little bit about my postpartum recovery, because that's been a trip, let me tell you. All right, here is our guest of honor, you guys. She's a little fussy. Where are you? She's getting a little fussy. We might have lots of squeaks. Oh, here she is, all grunty and everything. She's a little fussy. She's been kind of having a fussy last couple days, but that's normal around 4 weeks. It's kind of where they start getting more aware, self-aware. Okay, so we're gonna record like this, see if she calms down. All right, you guys, you're gonna hear lots of little noises from her, I'm sure, but hopefully this keeps her calm. The crib nap, we made it like an hour, so honestly, not bad. 50 minutes, which is honestly not terrible. I'll take it, you know, for the first little bit. We're gonna work on it. But we're gonna hold her here and hope that she stays calm. Okay, there we go. So from there we transitioned up to postpartum and had like a pretty normal start. I think one of the things I was most shocked by from like that first beginning of postpartum is how bad my tailbone hurt. Honestly, just the booty pain, tailbone pain, all of that. So awful those first couple days, and I was not expecting that at all. I was sore in the nether regions, but like the tailbone and the rectal pain, that was bad. Which obviously you're pushing a baby through there and like your tailbone is like, yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, that was one thing I was very shocked by. But they, you know, were asking me like, you know, you had a 3rd-degree tear. We can give you some heavier pain meds. And I was like, no, honestly, I don't think I need it. Like I'm good. And they're like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. Just Tylenol and ibuprofen was doing the trick, just for, you know, the general pain. I was like, no, I'm good. And they were like, okay. So basically, long story short, we were there and we ended up having to stay an extra day because she was a very sleepy latcher, which, spoiler alert, she still is. So they wanted us to just make sure we had a really good grasp on feeding before we went home with her. So they kept us an extra day, which I didn't realize like the severity of it until we went and actually met with a lactation consultant a week ago. And they were like, oh, you had a rough hospital stay. And I thought they meant like because of my tear. And I was like, oh yeah. And they were like, yeah, so like she really did not want to, and I was like, oh, it's because of her. Like, so they did not really like, I'm sure they just didn't want to stress me out, but I had no idea like how serious it was. So while we were there, they had me hand expressing colostrum and ultimately pumping. I had a lot of colostrum, which was great. She would not wake up. Like we had multiple lactation consultants come in and nurses trying to get her to nurse, and she just was too sleepy, which she did have a little bit of a traumatic birth experience, so that could have been why, and just her body trying to like recover and everything. But they just again wanted us to feel really good about her feeding before we left. And also because she was born early morning, they like to release you in the morning, so the way the timing worked, it was just easier for us to stay an extra day versus us going home that very next day, which honestly I had no complaints about, because postpartum, it was like an all-inclusive resort. It was so nice. They will bring you anything you want. The nurses are so great. The only thing that was a bummer is that they're constantly like checking on your vitals and all this, that, the other thing. My blood pressure was a little all over the place, and so they had to keep an eye on that, which that will come into play later as well. So anyway, it was great. Postpartum, 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, 12 out of 10 experience. Great nurses. I loved all of our nurses. It was awesome. So we went home Friday the 10th. Right? That doesn't sound right. Or Saturday. We went home Friday. Yes, we went home Friday. And got home and everything was good. And then Saturday hit, and I started having this weird like side pain, and my blood pressure was getting really high. So they inform you, things to look out for postpartum are your blood pressure, preeclampsia, and I already knew I was at a risk for preeclampsia because I was a preeclampsia baby and I also had hypertension. So I was just super, super nervous, and we ended up going into acute care first, and they did a full set of labs, and then from there, the doctor that we met with, she was like, I need you guys to go to the ER, like right now. I am worried that she was worried that I had HELP syndrome, which is basically a more severe form of preeclampsia, is kind of how she explained it. Because my liver levels are really high, I also had a UTI, and high blood pressure. So my blood pressure actually came down a little bit, which was good, but my liver enzymes were really high. So they sent us to the ER. So we had my dad come and stay with Jackson because we did not want to take a brand new baby into the ER. With God knows what is floating around in there. We were already nervous taking her to acute care, but thankfully it was empty. There was like nobody there. But we, so we went to the ER, and if you are 2 weeks or less postpartum, they typically will just send you right back to the postpartum or labor and delivery unit, basically the birthing area. So we went back to triage, and they did labs, they did another urine analysis, and just wanted to check up on everything. And so we were sitting in triage, which unfortunately, the beds there are so awful. But it was fine. We were just waiting for the results and like waiting for next steps, which turned into a long situation. So basically we were there, and both doctors on call were in unmedicated births. And if you, at least at my hospital, if you are having an unmedicated birth, the doctor cannot leave the room once you are getting close, because things can change super fast. And so they were both in unmedicated deliveries. So we were literally just waiting for these babies to be born, which turned into us waiting for 3 hours. Thankfully we had a great couple nurses actually, that we were just like chatting it up with and like hanging out. But let me tell you, when you have a 3rd-degree tear and have just had a baby, and you are sitting on these triage beds for 3.5 hours, it's not fun. It hurt so bad. So anyway, after about 3.5 hours, we finally got a doctor to come in, and she was an angel. And she was like, all right, here's the deal. Looked at your labs. I don't think it's anything serious, which thank God. She's like, I think what happened is your liver levels were probably already really high from giving birth, because it was a little bit, of a situation afterwards. And they're coming down. So she's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you home on Monday, go back and retake your labs. We'll make sure your levels are continuing to decline. And then if they're not, we'll go from there. So we went back home, which we were relieved. We just wanted to be back home with our baby. And then went in and did labs on Monday, and my levels were indeed dropping. So that was good. So we were in the clear there. Then jump to this one. We had her first pediatrician appointment, and her jaundice levels were very high, which we found out bruising is actually because she was so bruised. Bilirubin is what heals and takes away bruising. So that was probably why her levels were so high. Her bilirubin levels were high. So we had a little bit of a situation trying to get her levels down. It took a little bit longer than normal. And we had to go and get her heel pricked multiple times, which is so traumatic because this poor thing is like screaming. Also, the tech that we had was just, I won't get into it. Let's just say Jonathan almost lost his marbles at this lady. So the second time that we had to go in, so basically prick their heel, and they have to milk like a whole little vial of blood out of their poor little feet. And so this lady was already really awful to us, like just moody, and the first time. And then the second time we went in, got the same lady, and she used the wrong vial, so she had to do it twice. And let me tell you, Jonathan almost went off at her. I could tell she felt so bad, but I was just like, oh my gosh. So anyway, I need to speed the story along because my battery is going to die. But, I mean, I have time. We're at 40% battery right now. So anyway, then her levels did end up coming down. It just took a little bit. So that was good. But that was stressful having to go in and get those tests done. Because in the hospital, they have a little wand machine thing that they just scan them and they're good. That's it. So I'm like, oh, they're just gonna scan her and and then it'll be good, it'll be done. No. Freaking milking her heel of all the blood that's in it. Ugh, it was so sad. And she was screaming. I cried the first time. She was crying. I was crying. It was terrible. Anyway, then she was good. So good there. Then the next day, we get a call from our pediatrician, and it went to my voicemail. And she left a message, and I immediately knew something was wrong. Because they tell you in the hospital they do a state screening for specific conditions, and they're like, basically, if you don't hear from them, you're good. If you do hear from them, then something came up. So I call her back, and she said, basically, your daughter has been flagged for cystic fibrosis. And I immediately started crying. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, we've literally been through such a roller coaster already. Thankfully, Jonathan was right next to me, and he remembered that we had done genetic testing before we got pregnant with her, mostly because my mom, who passed away when I was little, had muscular dystrophy, and I didn't know if it was genetic or not and wanted to be aware of that. But both Jonathan and I did genetic testing, so he remembered that he was a carrier for cystic fibrosis. I am not. So long story short, we had to do some more testing with her, and everything came back normal. So she does not have cystic fibrosis, but that was one more punch to the gut in this process right after having her. But she is a carrier more than likely, and it does not actually have the condition. So that was a relief, but we had to do more testing for that. And then Wednesday after, so almost a week after having her, my blood pressure skyrocketed again. Had to go to the ER again. And basically from there, the doctor is like, all right, we've been dealing with this long enough. Let's get you on some blood pressure medication and give you some Lasix, which is a diuretic, so it makes your body get rid of extra fluid. Basically what was happening, which I haven't even touched on this yet, I was so swollen, you guys. My feet, I'll insert a picture here. My feet and legs were so swollen, so full of fluid. I had no idea how much fluid I was retaining. I thought it was just weight that I had gained, and I mean, I knew my feet were swollen, but like the true extent of how much fluid I was hanging on to is insane. So they put me on some blood pressure medication, sent me on my way, sent me with a diuretic for 5 days. So I went on that, and then things started finally calming down. I gotta back up a little bit. So Saturday was the first time that we went to the ER, and we sat in triage for 3 hours, 3.5 hours, something like that. 4 hours, maybe. By this time, we got home at 3 a.m., so it was more than 3.5 hours, but we were waiting on the doctor for like 3.5 hours, basically, for the other babies to be born. But after that, on Sunday, was the worst day of all of my recovery. That is when my pain absolutely went through the roof. I have never been in so much pain in my life. I've had very few surgeries or anything like that in my life. The closest thing I can compare it to is getting my appendix removed. This was like 10 times that pain. And I was literally unconsolably crying, and Jonathan was finally like, all right, we need to get those pain meds. And I was like, yep, we need to do something. I don't know why it took so long. I mean, Jonathan does say, they say that like the third day after like a surgery is the worst for like pain wise, and that was the case for me in this situation. It was so bad, I can't even explain to you how bad it was. Plus, when you're recovering postpartum, you're expected to like be sitting down, be laying down, relaxing, which is, first of all, so uncomfortable. Literally so uncomfortable to be like sitting and like trying to nurse her in bed or like hold her. Like, I honestly, you guys, I didn't even want to hold her because I was in so much pain, which is such a like a mind game. I mean, I wanted to hold her, but like it was so painful because of my third-degree tear that Jonathan was like literally doing everything, and that I need to give Jonathan like literally all the props in the world, because he has been so good, such a good dad, such a good caretaker, and I knew he would be. But you guys, I'm not kidding you, I didn't change a single diaper. I didn't, like, he held her practically the whole first week or two after. I mean, I literally hardly had to lift a finger if I didn't want to. He got up with me every night to try and feed her and everything, and he's literally been like the best dad and the best partner in this situation, and I'm just so lucky to have someone like that, because I know not everyone does. And literally in like those first couple days, first like week, I would literally just sit and cry, because I was like, I can't imagine not having a partner like Jonathan. And it made me so sad for people that don't have supportive partners or don't have you know, helpful dads or present dads or partners, whatever, or like single moms. Like, how the heck do you do this? Like, I literally cannot even imagine. So I just have to give him a shout out. He'll never see this, but he's truly been so good. And he goes back to work next Wednesday or Thursday, and I literally want to cry every time I think about it, because he's been so helpful, and like he's made this process so much easier for me, because it has not been easy at all. And I'm just like honestly kind of dreading him going back to work, because it's like our little bubble is, you know, we've just been in this little bubble. And anyway, it'll be fine. We got to figure out, you know, a system, and it'll be good to get back in a routine and all that. But it's like, it's been such a nice little 5 weeks. He got 5 weeks of paternity leave, or bonding leave as his work calls it, and it's literally been like the best thing ever. So if your husband needs a job and you want a good paternity leave, go work at Costco, because you get a really good paternity or maternity leave. If you're the one having the baby, you get 12 weeks paid. It's incredible. So here's a pitch to go work at Costco for the benefits, if nothing else. Anyway, so my pain skyrocketed, and I finally got on these pain meds, and thank God, because even that, it was still pretty dang bad, even with all the pain meds I was on. So yeah, we had super high pain, 2 ER visits for me, testing for her, jaundice, more testing for jaundice, testing for cystic fibrosis. I had a UTI, high blood pressure, high liver levels, swelling. The swelling was so uncomfortable. It was just, you guys, I'm telling you, I had a rocky postpartum experience, and it's not over yet. I still have a UTI, or have another one that I just got on antibiotics for last night. So it's been a road, but thankfully, hormonally, I feel really good. I have not had any baby blues. I had my weepy moments, but one of my friends, she goes, you know what, I hate to say it, but that never goes away. Like once you have kids. Oh, I was like, she's like asking how I was feeling hormonally, and I was like, honestly, I feel really good, except I'll randomly cry at like one thought or one emotional video. And she goes, I hate to break it to you, but that never goes away. And I was like, well, at least I'll take this over, you know, anything more severe. But I'm very, very grateful that I've been able to stay very positive and honestly laugh at a lot of this now. I mean, it sucked in the moment, but overall, I can look back and joke about it, which is just how I roll. You know, I'm a chronically positive person, and that might be part of the reason why I have felt really good. But I'm just very grateful that my hormones have allowed me to still stay very positive and have still a good experience in that regards, because the rest of it was not good. So anyway, that brings us to today. Little Miss is 1 month old, and we are in a fussy phase right now, trying to figure out how to get her to sleep. Last night she was pretty fussy most of the night. We're not really sure why, but I know that around like 4 to 6 weeks is when they do start getting a little bit more fussy because they're becoming a little bit more self-aware. She was really great at the beginning, and I still really can't complain too much. She usually gives us like 3 to 4 hour stretches of sleep at night. However, it seems like her witching hour is when we lay her down for bed. She does not like to go to bed. She likes to be held to go to sleep, which we're trying to not do a ton of, to try to train her to sleep on her own. Again, we're working on it. We're giving her some grace. She's figuring it out, just like even more so than we are. But she has started to be a little bit more fussy. But when she's awake, she's so cute and happy and just looks around. It's like it's so fun seeing her. Like she's barely starting to like smile just the littlest bit at us every now and then, and it's so cute. It's like the best. But we're just grinding through all the things with newborn life and figuring out sleep schedules and a routine and all that. So that's where we're at. And that is the birth story, the postpartum story, all the nitty-gritty details. Tearing, pooping on the table, high blood pressure, sausage feet, jaundice baby, UTIs, high blood pressure, high liver, like literally there's so many things. So it's been a month, let me tell you. I had fully planned on recording this video so much earlier, and clearly it didn't happen. So anyway, thank you guys for listening in, for tuning in, for being here. Hopefully I answered all of your burning questions about labor and delivery and things that can happen. And I hope this doesn't scare anyone. I don't want anyone to be scared by my story. My story is not normal. It's not unheard of, but this is not necessarily a normal postpartum experience, or birth experience. I'm still very grateful we made it through. I feel like, so I'm 4 weeks postpartum now, and I feel like you know what I just realized? I told you guys the wrong days. She was born on a Wednesday. I said she was born on Thursday. Anyway, but this is, I'm 4 weeks postpartum now, and I'm shocked that my stitches, I feel like, are fully healed from what I can feel. I'm still dealing with some pain from my UTI and things like that. But overall, like, I'm feeling much more healed in just 4 weeks. And to me, that's quick. I know it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not, because I've been in a lot of pains in the last 4 weeks, but to me it seems kind of fast. And I know I'm not like fully healed, like I am not even to my 6th week, but like I feel surprisingly good. Like I would have expected it to take a lot longer to get to this point if you would have asked me a couple weeks ago, but we're taking it easy. I should have taken it more easy when I was recovering, like right after she was born, but I have a hard time with that. So that also may have contributed to my experience. I mean, my like pain levels, maybe. Nothing else. Everything else still would have been there. But anyway, so that is it. That is the story. Long-winded for you. Lots of details. But thank you guys for being here, for watching, and subscribe if you have not yet. With Jonathan going back to work next week, I'm kind of hoping that I will be able to get in a routine and start vlogging again, because it's just gonna be me and little girl home for the days during the work week. Well, not even during the work week. Jonathan's schedule is a little bit, it's not just like Monday through Friday. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to pop in and vlog a little bit, just to make myself feel a little bit more back to normal, if nothing else. I'm still on a maternity leave through the end of the year. But I think that'll give me a little bit of, I don't know, give me a sense of normalcy and something to like look forward to, because I really do enjoy vlogging and editing and things like that. It's just a matter of finding time to edit amongst all of the things going on with little miss. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in and for meeting Miss Jackson Jules, our little girly. And I will see you guys very soon in another video. Bye guys.